Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are starting a career retrospective of Roy Wood. Tonight we're going to start off with two of his solo records. Well, one's a solo record, Boulders and Wizzard Brew. Marco's here from the Contrarians, and we're just going to go through his entire catalog. So please stay tuned, and let's get started.
Jeff was a very good songwriter. He still is a very good songwriter. It was a 50-50 thing that we got together. But when we actually got on the road, it was a sort of partly the fault of the management and partly just the way it turned out, I suppose, was that I was sort of the more established person because of actually writing a lot of hit singles and that before that. So that all the press came up to me at the gigs and said, well, you know, what do you think about this, Roy? What do you think about that, Roy? And Jeff sort of got left out in the cold, really, whereas he'd done an equal amount of work to get the thing on the road. I think it was something to do with the fact that the management didn't take it into hand at that particular time, really. They should have sort of sorted it out and said, right, you know, we'll get some interviews for Jeff and we'll get some for Roy and we'll get it sorted out properly, you know. But it never was, you know. And consequently, it came to a point where the atmosphere sort of got a little bit strained. It wasn't through a musical thing or anything, you know, because we both enjoyed playing each other's songs. But it was through this publicity thing, really, yeah.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight is kind of we've decided tonight this will be a series. We're going to look at the whole catalog of Wizzard, Roy Wood, the Wizzo Band, but we're just going to focus tonight on Roy Wood, Boulders, and Wizzard's Brew from the band Wizzard. Got Marco from the Contrarians here tonight. A month ago, we did an episode on the Move. So we were looking at the Move catalog and talking about that. And we decided Roy Wood is such an important artist. Maybe not so well known here in the States and in Canada, but in the UK, he's well known. He's an English musician, singer. He started out in the Move in the 60s, co-founded the Electric Light Orchestra with Jeff Lynne, and he was only on one record. We'll probably look at that first record eventually. I don't know. It all kind of fits. And then he founded the band Wizzard. And he also founded the band Wizzo. That came out, I think, 77 or so. So we're going to look at all these records. But I'd like to welcome Marco. Marco, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Yeah, this is it's wonderful. I mean, I don't know who else I would have here to talk Roy Wood or Jeff Lynne.
Yeah, but, Roy Wood's one of my favorite artists, and I was just blown away that you asked me to do the Move, and they were one of the first bands I got into in high school, and one of the first kind of more obscure or lesser known bands, past getting past like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, you know, the big bands that you discover. He was one of the first kind of like outlier bands that I got into, and it changed my life. I said that the last time I was on.
How did you get turned on? Did you get turned? I don't know if we talked about this before or not. Did you get turned on to the Move first, or did you get turned on to Roy Wood and his work? Or ELO? Was it ELO the gateway drug? I'm just curious.
It was actually Wizzard, and it was, and I think I did mention this in the last video, and I've told this story before. It was Wizzard through Kiss, because Kiss were influenced by the Move and by Wizzard and by Roy Wood. And there was a book that came out called Black Diamond Volume 2, which is the one I had the yellow cover. And it went into like all the different albums and vinyls and versions and releases of all kinds of miscellaneous albums connected to Kiss. And they had I distinctly remember they had a picture of Wizzard Brew, but it was the alternate version. I think it was the US version cover, where he's kind of standing there with like his not with his arms crossed, but he's standing with his hands on his head.
Yeah, not this one. This
not
is
that one.
UK version.
Yeah, the other cover.
The only copy I have of it is, you know, the set with original album series, because I figured, man, you get all these 5 albums for $25 or $20. It's a no-brainer.
That's a great collection.
It's a great
and every one of those albums is basically a different artist too.
It is. But from this, I've got everything covered, you know, and then picked up some stuff from Esoteric, but we're going to talk about that because I've got some stuff to share, and I'll probably share that before we really get started, I figure, because why not cover it on the first episode? But how I got into Roy Wood, it wasn't through ELO, though in the 70s when I was a kid, we had ELO records. My dad, we played Out of the Blue. He loved that record. But I wasn't all that familiar with Roy Wood. But a guitar player I used to play with was a big Roy Wood fan, big Move fan. He's the guy that turned me on to the Move and Roy Wood. He was a big fan of Mustard, which is like his second solo record, which I think Mustard is absolutely brilliant. Well, I don't think there's really anything that's really weak in the catalog. Now, he was a big Roy Wood fan. He wasn't so hip to this record, and he wasn't so hip to I show it.
On the Road Again?
He didn't think this was that good. I played On the Road today, and I thought, I love it. I don't get what I don't know. Is it up there with Boulders and Mustard? I like Roy's whole catalog, but I've got Marco here today. We're going to dive in. But like I said, I do recommend this. If you're an ELO fan, if you're a Roy Wood fan, get this original. If you don't have anything and you don't want to stream, this original album series collection that you can get on Amazon for 25 bucks. What a way to get it. And this is basically, I think this is on Parlophone, but that's all owned by, this is Warner's. This is actually UK import, but it's not expensive. But you get, you get a Move record, you get an ELO record, you get a solo Roy Wood record, you get Wizzard Brew, and you get, you get 2 Roy solo records. Another album that came out after that was the Wizzo album, different band, but I like this too. And this is on Wounded Bird. This is still in print. I don't know if this ever came out like through EMI this is on Warner Brothers.
That's on Spotify too. Which a lot of his albums are kind of hit and miss on Spotify.
Yeah.
Like, awesome.
This
Super
is
active Wizzo.
Yeah, this is the UK import. But it's a great band. It's
an awesome, yeah.
You got Rick Price is still playing with him at this point, and he'd been playing with Roy for years. But it's a big band. Look at all these people playing on it. It's not Roy doing it all himself, but we will get to this record eventually. But I like this record.
You're showing all these albums. I've got so much to say, but I know we're not talking about them. Like the On the Road Again album and that album.
We're gonna get to it. But here's Eddie and the Falcons Wizzard album, which we're gonna get to.
That's amazing that you have those on vinyl.
Yeah, this is on United Artists.
See, those ones are hard to find. Mustard and Eddie and the Falcons are hard. They're not even on Spotify. And I had a hard time tracking them down. I had to listen to them like on YouTube and stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
But like I could get Roy Wood Boulders. I could get Wizzard Brew. I could get, what else did I have? I had all the Move albums. You know what I mean? Like there's some stuff that's easy to get. And then there was some stuff like
Mustard's hard to get.
Mustard's really hard to get. Yeah.
My buddy had Mustard on, I think he had the original EMI CD that came out like in the 80s, which I think sounds fine because it's not jacked up. It's, it's probably right off the tape. Like they did that a lot in the 80s, kids. I'm just telling you, a lot of those 80s releases on CD aren't bad at all. But this is Mustard, which I've only seen this once on vinyl. And it was the copy my buddy had. But Esoteric is reissued. Esoteric. I love the work because the mastering on these CDs are wonderful. These have, and I don't work for them. I'm just recommending stuff if you want to get into it. But we'll be getting on the next episode, we'll be talking about Mustard. But the Esoteric did do a remaster, Boulders, and I think this and maybe something else. No, they did
tracks on there.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, great job. And there's also something else I want to recommend if you just want to get a good compilation. And this is from the 80s. This isn't all jacked up. This is, if you go on the Steve Hoffman forums, this is what is recommended. because this is basically just a flat transfer from the master tapes. Not jacked up. It's just a good compilation. Roy Wood, you can dance the rock and roll 1971 to 1973. So this covers ELO, Roy Wood, Wizzard, and The Move. So it just gives you a sampling of all that stuff. And it's all Roy Wood songs, you know. Highly recommend this if you can pick one up. Of course, it's been out of print for years, but Discogs is your friend. And just to throw that out, there was a sister CD, Jeff Lynne, from year 68 to 73, A Message from the Country, which is, well, these go hand in hand. The Jeff Lynne version of this is much harder to find than the Roy Wood version. But the sound quality on these are top notch. Highly recommend it. But today we are going to talk about this little record. We're going to start out with Boulders. So this is Roy's first record. All right, so tonight we're going to look at this record. Boulders from Roy Wood that came out in 1973. This is his first solo effort after he'd left ELO. First ELO album, I think, was at 71. And then he was working on this. And basically, if anybody knows this record, which you might not, or you might, there's some pictures to share. Here's the back cover.
He did everything.
He did everything on this. It's like one of those situations like, you know, Todd Rundgren, where he records everything. Or God only knows. I'm just going to go with Todd Rundgren. But yeah, he did everything on this record. It kind of continues on. It doesn't really, if you've heard ELO, it's not like ELO. It kind of, God, how would you describe it, Marco?
Well, I would say it's kind of folky with some rock elements. It's kind of like an All Things Must Pass type of album, I guess. There's some even little bits of gospel, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in there. It's actually a very, very interesting album. Song structure wise,
it's
there's some beautiful melodies on there.
It's like I mean, this record really, well, it's one of my favorite Roy solo albums. But the songwriting for this record, like we talked about The Move, a lot of the Move stuff is just perfect songwriting. You know, Roy could write a hit single like that. Now, a lot of those Move records didn't really do anything here in the States, probably because they're very British sounding, you know, which I love that. You know, I don't have a problem with it. I think all the Move stuff and the esoteric catalog that they've remastered them with bonus tracks and as a reissue campaign, that reissue campaign with The Move is absolutely wonderful.
Well, The Move was a singles band, right? And he's a singles guy, and you can see that on his albums. Like a lot of his like even that On the Road Again, or even the album that he put out in the 80s, Starting Up. You listen to that album,
Starting Up.
All of those songs could have been a single. Not great singles or hits, but almost every one of those songs could have been a single. And that's what he is. Other than like Super Active Wizzo, like that's not really a singles album, but he's a singles guy. Like he writes singles, and you can tell when you listen to like Boulders.
Well, we were talking about the first Move album. You know, all the first Move album is a compilation of all the singles.
Right.
That's all it was. It's not even really, well, it is a rec album, but they were a singles band and they moved into that whole album thing. Because if you listen to Shazam, I'd say that really is an albm.
That's like a concept album. Almost.
It's like a concept album made of singles to some degree because, you know, Roy in the 60s was just a machine. But, you know, by the time we get to Boulders, we're in 73, he's still a machine. Little bit different. He's not using a band. It's all him recording everything. It's still very British sounding. Look, this was a cutout. This, you know, these didn't sell here. A lot of his stuff just went to the cutout bins. That's probably why you can't find Mustard. I think my buddy's copy of Mustard was a cutout too. And I think that was on United Artists because he had all those, Wizzard was on United Artists and all that here in the States. And I think that they were on Parlophone or EMI in the UK, but
yeah. For a singles band, The Move, and for a singles artist, I don't think he had a single hit in the States.
no.
Like I know Blackberry Way was #1 in the UK, but not
Mm-hmm.
not in the States. He was basically unknown here.
Yeah. But well, okay, here we go. In the UK, Boulders got to number 15 on the charts. Here in the States, it only went to 176.
Yeah.
So God knows that meant instant cutout bin. So no one, Mustard didn't even chart.
Right.
1975, On the Road Again was his next solo, like we mentioned. That didn't come out to 79. This is an interesting statistic. I know we're going all over the place, but we're starting the series, so we can do it. On the Road Again was not even released in the UK.
Interesting.
Came out in the States.
Wow.
It didn't chart. The only charting album that he had as a solo artist was Boulders. And then in 87, there were these big gaps in his career. We didn't have Starting Up till 1987.
Yeah.
I have
nothing after that.
And nothing, that was it.
Except for Main Street, which was that Wizzard album that was recorded that was never released.
Which I still need to get that. And I still need to get Starting Up. So I have time, though, to get those.
Yeah.
I've got everything else. Well, originally, everybody, we were thinking about doing this all in 1 hour. And then Marco and I are just thinking, oh, man, let's just do a series. Look at 2 albums at once. So we're looking at Boulders. That was the intro. That was a damn long intro. But if anybody knows this channel, it's all about the conversation. So let's look at Boulders a little bit. Bit of trivia for this record. He recorded this from 1969 to 1971. It was finally released in 1973 on Harvest, which I could see this would be in a Harvest used to handle some of those acts that weren't quite as commercial. Parlophone would handle more commercial stuff, or EMI or Columbia in the UK. He fit right there with Harvest because it's a little eccentric. It's a little out there on the edge. And like we said, he played all the instruments on this record.
Wrote all the songs, even did the artwork, which I think we should just for a moment linger on that. To me, that's fascinating. And I've said that to people like, oh, this guy, Roy Wood, he had a solo album and it was solo and he did everything. He played every instrument. He wrote, I think there's one instrument he didn't play for like one song.
Harmonium was John Kurlanger. He played that.
But we're not just talking about guitar, drums, bass.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're talking about this guy was almost a one-man orchestra.
Cello, yeah.
Banjo. He did everything. And like, I find that fascinating, and just the amount of talent that he had to do that musically, to write interesting songs with good melodies that are catchy, like the whole album, like every song I like, you know what I mean? And I tell that to people who aren't really music fans or casual music fans, and they don't really care. But to me, I'm like, I find that stat or that fact just amazing. I'm blown away by that.
Yeah. But think about this, Marco. You mentioned this before. He touches on gospel. This record is very eclectic, eccentric, if you want to even go there. But look at Roy, it just fits him perfectly. You've got classical, art rock, country, regular old 50s rock and roll, because he'd love that stuff. Folk, art rock, anything in that type of stuff. Now, later on, we also know that he was a big Beach Boys fan. Fan. Yeah. You don't have that so much on this record, but on a later stuff, it's like Mustard. We're not at Mustard Kids, but a lot of Beach Boys elements. A lot. But he does do a lot of multi-track choir type vocals on here. It's just, I find on the later stuff, it just seems more Beach Boysy to me. He loved Brian Wilson and all that.
I agree. Mustard is very much like that.
But I think at the time, this record got a lot of great reviews. If I remember right, Rolling Stone, I think, gave it 4 stars. Rolling Stone hated everything. But if I should have pulled that, I didn't pull that. But I think they gave it like 4 stars, which is Like I said, back in the day, they hated everything. Yeah, and it peaked number 15 in the UK. It had the single Dear Eileen, and that was a top 20 hit. And I don't know. Do you remember how many hits the Move had? They had a lot of. They were very successful.
They had a lot of singles. I know their only number one single in the UK was Blackberry Way. But they had a lot. They had a lot of singles. Wizzard had a big hit too with. Well, I guess we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, Dear Elaine, the track that's on here, and I think there's a bonus track which is like a rough mix on here as well. I'm looking at the track listing.
Yeah.
So that's this. I had the CD. I showed it the last time I was on Grant's Rock Warehouse. So if you want to see my copy of Boulders, you can go back and look at that. I also had this briefly on 8-track, but that's another story. If you want to go back to the first episode,
wow, that an 8-track of that would be
a sealed
rare.
copy. Yeah, I had a sealed copy of it on 8-track. So I don't like talking about it, but anyway,
he gets upset. We don't bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, you probably could have picked and chosen almost any song off this to be an A-side and almost any song off this to be a B-side. I think. Nancy Sing Me a Song, I think could have been a single. Wake Up, there's another like ballady, like melodic song, beautifully written, beautiful song. Grandma Plays the Banjo is kind of a novelty track, I guess. But I think Miss Clark and the Computer is an interesting song. Listen to the lyrics of that. That's an eclectic. You're talking about eclectic lyrics, interesting lyrics like that. I love that tune for what it is. You know, it's a story about a computer that's, I think, in love with a human, and you know what I mean? Like, you listen to the lyrics, like that's a great tune. But almost any of these Songs of Praise could have been a single.
I just popped into my head. Emmett Rhodes is another artist. You know, I mentioned Todd Rundgren before. Emmett Rhodes would record everything himself. But this came out in 73. But in 71's when he started to record it. How many artists can you name that early, like in the 70s, that were using the studio like Roy was doing? Going in there and just molding a record by himself. I can't think of anybody else. What year did Emmett Rhodes come out? If we only had a way to look it up. Look it up, Marco. Can you do that for me? Emmett Rhodes.
Emmett.
Very critically acclaimed. They used to compare Emmett to Paul McCartney. He was in the band called Merry-Go-Round in the 60s. And that was critically acclaimed.
Studio albums, The Merry-Go-Round, 1967, The American Dream, 1970. Is that what you're talking about? Emmett Rhodes, but
there's an album cover where it's like a black cover. It's like burnt, and he's looking through like a window or something.
Yeah, that's 1970.
1970. So that predates Roy. Okay.
Yeah.
So
well,
Emmett Rhodes,
you know, Roy was in the Move for a few years before, and some of the Move stuff is comparable to some of the stuff on Boulders. Like if you listen to like Beautiful Daughter from Shazam, that's comparable to what he's doing on Boulders, and that's 69, I think.
Yeah, because he started this record when the Move was still going on. So
he was doing a lot in 1970. He basically was in between 3 different bands, pretty much. 70, 71, 72.
Yeah,
maybe 4 bands. I don't know. You count his solo career and Wizzard and the Move and ELO. Like he's doing like, you know, he was
Message from the Country, and I think the first ELO album were recorded at pretty much the same time.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at, can you imagine like literally that 2 to 3 year span, the amount of albums, output, bands that he was in and recording in the studio? That's a busy 3 years. That's a lot happened in that 3 years. Considering, like you said, there's a big gap between On the Road Again and Starting Up, and then nothing after that. So it's interesting.
I'm not sure what the story is with that, but I'm sure we'll figure it out as we get to a later episode. But I don't know. For someone who was so prolific that would take such big breaks between stuff, and then we haven't had anything that was.
He lives off that Christmas song. That's his, every year he comes out at Christmas in the UK and he plays that Christmas song, and that's his royalties. Maybe he got disillusioned with the music industry when he put his heart and soul. To me, he's more of an artist than he's a musician, but he's an artist. Like I picture him as being an artist, and
Yeah.
You're putting out albums that, like you're saying, not charting, not getting any attention. Maybe he's got disillusioned with it. I don't know his story that much. I wish I could. Maybe I should find a book and read about him, because I don't know a lot about his personal life, but I know all of his music.
Either. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was hard to work with in the studio. I don't know, but to me, he comes off as an artist.
I was going to say that he did record this he used a couple of different studios for this, phonogram sessions, and he was at Abbey Road. He recorded this, and Alan Parsons was one of the engineers on this record. So, but there are other records. Nick Webb, John Kirklander was an engineer there, but look, think about it. He recorded this over a 3-year time span. It's just incredible. According All Music Guide, Stephen Thomas Erlewine said, I'm going to give a quote: Wood has a knack for writing melodies, whether they're in folk ballads, sweet pop, or old-fashioned rock and rollers. Yet his brilliance is how he turns the hooks 180 degrees until they're gloriously out of sync with his influences and peers. I think that's an interesting. I have to agree with that, because he can do old-fashioned rock and roll, but during some of these tracks, he can just take it and turn it on its head and make it totally his own. It's just brilliant stuff. I can see why my buddy Keith loved it, because it's kind of like Brian Wilson, that Beach Boy stuff, Pet Sounds. It's the Smile album, very creative period. Roy's just, the Move stuff is brilliant, but Roy just kept going, When we got to this, it's just absolutely stunning, brilliant. I mean, if you like the Move, you'll love this. What else can we say?
And I think that's part of what that guy alluded to, is part of what draws me to Roy Wood, is that like, not only does he have a unique voice, but he has a unique way of writing lyrics and structuring melodies. Like, just like that guy said, he stands out a bit. It's a little bit different. He's out of the box, and I dig that a lot. And you can see that he has a connection with his music. The fact that he did the album artwork, he wrote all the songs, he played all these. It's like he has a connection with the music, and that comes through for me, and I can feel that.
When you think of a solo album, this is a true solo album.
That's what I try to tell people,
right.
But a lot of people don't care. A lot of people are like, oh, that's great. Oh, he played all the instruments, cool. Like,
I mean,
but I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Well, if I was going to give this a rating, well, I'm just going to go through a couple of ratings, what some people have rated it.
Okay.
All Music gave it 4.5 out of 5. Robert Christgau, who usually hates everything too, he gave it an A-.
Interesting.
Now, yeah. And if Christgau gives something an A-, I really can't. That's a pretty good review from someone who doesn't like a lot. And that's just a running joke that I always say. He always hates everything. But, unless it's Talking Heads or Television or Blondie or something like that. But for the most part, it gets great reviews all the time. I would have to, I don't know, what would you rate this record out of 10? Just curious.
It's up there probably. I mean, like on a personal level, would be like a 9 for me personally. If I'm recommending it to somebody else, I'd probably give it a really strong, like 8. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, I think I like every song on it. I don't think there's a weak track on there, but I'm a fan of his style too.
Right.
So I'm biased, like I can't, somebody else who's a super metalhead might hate this album up and down, right? But like, or not. But I mean, for me, it's a solid, on a personal level, it's like a 9. I listen to this album a lot.
I agree.
I can identify and connect with it a lot. And every song's good. There's a lot of good melodies in there. I like the ballads, Miss Clark and the Computer, like I said, even the rock melody on the end there.
But if you're
that's kind of like Wizzard.
If you're a Move fan, you'll like this record.
If you're a Move fan, you shouldn't not like this album. Like, you know what I mean?
If you like the first ELO album, I think you would like this record. I'm just saying.
You could even argue there's some more off the beaten path stuff on the ELO record than on this album, I think.
Yeah, this
there's
might
some
be
classical instrumentals that go on for like 12 minutes on that album, right? The first ELO.
Yeah. This might even be more accessible. I
agree. I would.
I'll say, don't, you can quote me. I think this might be more accessible. I don't know originally what that ELO album did when it got released. Was it a total failure? I don't know. The first
they did release the single off of it, the Overture song.
Mm-hmm. It probably did a lot better in the UK. I don't think it really did anything over here.
Yeah. What would you say to my assessment that you could, this reminds me of maybe Roy trying to do like an All Things Must Pass type
I've never heard that, but I can totally see that. Yeah. Because it would, if you listen to both records, they kind of go hand in hand to some degree. They're about the same time, early 70s. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Marco. Yeah. I'd highly recommend it. I mean, if you're just getting into Roy Wood, I think this would be a good entry point.
Yeah.
To Roy. I'd always recommend the Move first, but I think this is top notch. I'd give it a 9. Because there is an album I like better of his solo work. So
Mustard, right?
Oh, I think Mustard's even more brilliant.
So Mustard's a 10?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say Mustard's like an 8 because I can't give everything a 9 out of. I go the other way, but I love Mustard.
I love it. I love this but I like more of the Beach Boy element because Roy really can do Beach Boys really well.
See, I like that too. I like the Beach Boys stuff on there too. I like some of those songs too.
Yep. Well, let's look at Wizzard's Brew. Let me get my notes up for that.
Wizzard Brew, that came out right around the same time, right? 1973, 1972, like right in that ballpark. I had the CD with all the bonus tracks, so I had all the singles. I had the Christmas song on there, all the Wizzard singles pretty much, and the album itself. What's your assessment on like the production of the album? How do you feel that stacks up?
The version that I have is on this, like I showed you, is on this original album series. And this isn't like the Esoteric, but I'm not sure if Esoteric, maybe you know this, did they reissue Wizzard's Brew? Because that was one of those elusive releases. My buddy Keith had it on vinyl, but that's the only copy I've ever seen of it.
It's been re-released for sure. I had the CD with all the bonus tracks.
Okay. So that's probably Esoteric probably did it. They seem to be doing all the Roy stuff now. But the original album series, this is just something that came out through Warner Brothers or Parlophone or whatever. I'd like to hear the Esoteric version because these don't have any bonus tracks. These are just the straight records.
Ooh.
And that's fine. Well, for the money, I can't complain about it.
Yeah.
What do I think about Wizzard's Brew? I'm not as crazy about the production on it. It seems kind of muddy to me. That doesn't take away anything from the quality of the material though. But this came out in 73 on Harvest. And it was released in United Artists as Wizzard's Brew with a different cover. Yeah. Maybe I'll try to throw that. Yeah, I know that cover. I don't know. I might, you know what, Marco? I might have Wizzard's Brew.
On vinyl?
Yeah. I don't remember. I'm not going to go look for it, but I think I might have it somewhere in the archives, and I just kind of blanked out on it. I'm so used to looking at the European cover that
it's a cool cover.
I'm just like, yeah. But like I said, it came out on United Artists here in the States. And in the UK it came out on Harvest. This is an interesting thing. In 2003, Mojo magazine ranked it number 18 on its list of top 50 eccentric albums.
Oh wow.
Well, it's eccentric, all right. And I must say, the cover of Wizzard's Brew for the UK, I love that album cover. It's just
So do I.
It's just as eccentric as the music.
Yeah, I love that he's creating a brew and he's throwing the different musicians in there basically, and I love that cover. I have a T-shirt with that cover on it.
You do?
I had a custom-made T-shirt with that cover on it. I don't know. Pretty sure I have it somewhere.
But it's got a lot of great stuff on here. We were mentioning the re-releases. It was released on CD in 1999. And from what I'm reading here, it was soon deleted. I don't know why. I've never seen that one. And the expanded remastered edition,
that's what I have,
including a four A side and B sides, was released.
Most of the singles. Anyways, not all.
It was released on CD in November 2006.
Yeah. So when it comes to the production, I've heard that Roy was influenced and was trying to get like that wall of sound production from like that Phil Spector kind of thing. And I agree with you that there is it does kind of sound demo-y or something. It doesn't sound as like, you listen to Boulders and listen how clean that sounds.
Yeah.
And then you listen to Wizzard Brew and there is something about the production, but it doesn't turn me off. I've never been a big production guy, so it doesn't turn me off that much.
No, I love this record though.
But listen to those, as soon as the album starts with those drums, those are like thundering drums, and it is eccentric and it can be kind of goofy in parts, but it's pretty cohesive, I think.
Oh, I think so too.
Like the first track, Buffalo Station, that's probably my favorite track, is the Buffalo Station Get On Down to Memphis. And Wear a Fast Gun, just like epic, just an epic, very visual album too. Like when I listen to this album, I picture things. It makes me visualize stuff, and that's Wear a Fast Gun. I think is an underrated tune by how epic and just phenomenal and explosive that song is, and the rest of the album.
I was going to mention this kind of has some Move members on here. I mean, of course you have Roy, and I'm looking at what he was playing. He played sitar, electric and acoustic guitars, cello, bassoon, baritone saxophone, string bass, B flat bass, tuba. How can the guy's amazing. Trombone, recorder, and he did percussion. You've got Rick Price on here playing bass. And like I said, Rick's been playing with him for years. Bill Hunt playing piano, harpsichord, French horn, flugelhorn, and all that. Great. And Hugh McDowell was in ELO, right? I think so. He plays cello on it. You got other people on here but there's a lot of saxophones, clarinet. It's just almost like an orchestra to some degree.
But it's
the instrument. It's interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting how he went with the ELO idea in a different direction. Because I mean, they're basically almost doing a similar thing. You listen to the first
very
ELO
similar.
album, but the musical style and genre is different.
Yeah.
Like that first ELO album is very influenced by classical music. And then you listen to this album, and like you said, there's like an orchestra here too, but it's almost like a different genre even.
It's like way more eccentric, but the playing on this record's incredible. Yeah.
Very rock and roll influenced. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's not like the next record when we're going to talk about oh crap,
Eddie and the Falcons. That's like a concept album.
That's a concept. Definitely all 50s on that one.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, this is Del Shannon.
Yeah, but this is kind of gives you hints at that.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's rock and roll. Yeah, but I was going to mention this came out in 73, and the next Wizzard album, Eddie and the Falcons, came out in 74. But when this came out, let me see if I can find some reviews. I don't see any reviews. Do you remember anything about how this was received when it came out at the time?
Again, like he's relatively unknown in the States, and I know that he was not received well in the States, because I know that through my relationship with liking Kiss, and that's how I discovered Wizzard, was through a book, because he influenced them. they tried to help him out, and they brought him over, and I think they had him support them on a tour. And Kiss, I don't remember where they were playing, but you can imagine somewhere in Detroit where they're used to like big heavy guitars and stuff like this. You see like a glam guy come out, apparently they booed him off the stage, and apparently he was even a little shooken up by it. And I think the guys in Kiss felt kind of bad because he was this guy that they really looked up to.
Yeah.
And they tried to give him a break over here, and he was not well received live. So I don't know how the album was, but apparently he came out, I think, in this getup, and he was basically booed off the stage. So I can imagine the album did not sell well here.
Oh, I think my copy's a cutout. All these Wizzard album, I'm pretty sure mine's a cutout. I know I've got it. Now that I think about it, I just blank. I can't remember everything, but it's got a notch in the corner. I mean, it didn't sell. All his stuff just went straight to the cutout bin,
I mean, he was on UK TV a lot. There's lots of Top of the Pops performances and stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like you can find he did a lot of singles and did well over there. He just couldn't break it over here. It was very. I mean, you watch some of those videos too, those performances, and there's guys like skating around in like gorilla outfits, and you know what I mean? Like it's really goofy, and yeah, there's a lot going on in those videos. Almost too glam, almost too over the top, maybe for the States. Where over here at the same time, I mean, you got maybe Ted Nugent was a little bit later, but I mean, you had some heavy stuff going on over here.
What year did Kiss bring him over? Was it early?
It was early Kiss, and I don't know. I think they even did. There's a radio interview floating around with him, and they talked about how he influenced them. And I think that's like early 74, 75. Maybe, I don't think 76. I think it's like 75, but I don't know. Maybe it was 76.
Yeah, I didn't know that he opened. I knew Cheap Trick and, Rush and everything like that open for Kiss, but I didn't know they brought Roy over. I don't think Cheap Trick ever brought Roy over. And, Roy never comes over here now to tour ever. He is.
I know.
I probably hadn't been here since then.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, well.
He plays in the UK every Christmas.
He's always playing.
Yeah. It's that Christmas song.
I just don't get it. I think he's just too out there. And the stuff's brilliant. I think Wizzard's Brew is brilliant. It's different from Boulders. It's different from Mustard. It's a different animal, but it's not that different. This just like takes move type songs and just pushes them to a different boundary. Because the Move is basically a rock and roll band with just great songs.
Yeah.
When Roy's just bringing all these, and I'm sure it's influenced by the whole ELO experience by using all these string instruments.
Yep.
And he basically quit ELO and just pushed it even further out.
Yeah, and I find what he did with Wizzard, which was different than what ELO did, was I find Wizzard is a little more energetic and organic sounding, and ELO kind of went a little more like synthetic sounding. And I like ELO. I'm not even saying that to put them down because
I love
but they were a little more electronic and synthetic, and Wizzard went a little more organic and energetic, and yeah.
You can't deny that what Jeff Lynne did with ELO, he really was able to. I know this is going on a tangent, but that all those ELO albums with Jeff.
How many singles did they have? Dude, he was a singles guy too.
They were big in the 70s. You couldn't get away when I was a kid. You couldn't get away from it. Out of the Blue was that was the peak. Once you get up to the top, that's the top. You only can go down. But Out of the Blue was just incredible.
Yeah.
It's just sad. I just think back. It's just too bad Roy was just too out there to be accepted. He's much more of a cult artist over here,
Yeah, and it sounds like he was accepted by the critics, but it wasn't. It wasn't enough. And I think that's why they put him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because I think the argument that they were making was this guy deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we'll put him in with ELO, even though he has all his other own merits. But I think that was kind of an excuse to get him in, and I'm glad that he's in the Rock and Roll. He definitely deserves to be there. maybe not necessarily with ELO, because that really was Jeff Lynne's thing after that first album.
Right.
I think Roy Wood is technically on the second album, but not really. That's when he left. But
did he make it to anything on there? I don't know.
I think so. I think he might be uncredited on a couple of tracks on that.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Different instruments, but he's definitely on the first one.
Yeah, I think the Move deserved to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame but they were never big here. But
no, yeah,
you can still look at artists that were big in the UK.
Yeah, don't they have like a pioneer wing or something now where they just induct like 20 people every year?
They might.
Yeah, I don't know. They have some kind of wing that they could probably put them in. But to go back to this album.
Oh yeah.
So I had the bonus tracks.
Again, we went on a tangent there for a minute. Anyway, go ahead.
You could cut a whole nother album or two just on singles, Wizzard singles. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the album that I had was double. There was more singles than there was regular tracks on the version that I had.
Let me look on the best of, because you think about it. Wait a minute.
See My Baby Jive.
Yeah, I still have holes that I'm gonna have to fill, but I have time to fill those. Yeah, because this just has what's on Wizzard Brew. There's no bonus tracks. Let me see what on this. I'm looking at this comp. Wizzard, what's on here? It Wasn't My Idea to Dance. 19. Oh,
that's the Move.
No, wait a minute. No, that's the Move. Sorry. I'm looking
on.
See My Baby Jive.
No, sorry, that's Message from the Country.
Yeah, sorry.
See My Baby Jive. That was a single.
That was a single.
Did okay in the
1972.
Yeah.
Angel Fingers.
Angel Fingers. Yeah, that's another Eddie. That's Eddie and the Falcons ish. Okay. Kind of that 1950s rock and roll. I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. That was another one.
Let's see if that's in here. No. You Can Dance to Rock and Roll's on here.
That's from Brew. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ballpark Incident is on here.
That's another single. Yeah, that's another great tune.
That's all the Wizzard stuff that's on here.
But there's there's a bunch of singles. There's even more than that. Rock and Roll Winter's another one.
I'm sure if I had the esoteric scene,
Are You Ready to Rock? Which is a really goofy video.
Like I said, my Roy Wood catalog, it's a lot better than it used to be. I still have holes. You know?
Yeah, look up Are You Ready to Rock? There's like a Top of the Pops or Great Whistle Test or something video of that where he's wearing a skull cap, so he's bald, and it looks like there's a carrot growing out of his head, and he has two dummies, and he does the song with the two dummies on his hand. Are You Ready to Rock? Yeah, it's goofy. Check it out.
I'll have to check that out. And anybody who watches, check that video out and let us know what you think. But all right. So Wizzard Brew, I think it's brilliant. Well, I'm just curious what you would rate that one. I mean, it's not Roy Wood solo, but you can't help it. It's still Roy Wood. It's still solo pretty much, but it's just, he's got a band. That's all it was, is his Roy doing Roy with a band,
Yeah, again, it's hard for me to rate it. I'm way too biased. These albums had way too big of an impression on me.
Yeah,
but to me, it's like a 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
To me,
I'd probably give it.
But I love Wizzard and I love Roy. This is what got me into music. Was this? Got me into a deeper level of music. Was Roy Wood? Not just Roy Wood and Wizzard and
but just because you say you're biased, that if you dig it, you dig it. That's all that matters. I would have to say I'm going to give this yet another 9 because I think we're in this period where, he's been on fire ever since the Move days. There's not one I can't name a bad Move song or a bad Move album. I personally think when they got Jeff Lynne in the band, I love that original band too, though.
With Ace Kefford.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some live stuff. You should look up some live stuff from the early band. It's the 5 of them. And a lot of those guys, they were kind of trying to do the Beatles thing. There was multiple members were taking lead vocals on stuff. They were doing some interesting stuff. They had some good stuff. I think I could find some really dated songs from their early output that I'm kind of like, I don't really care about these Move songs. But I think you're right in the sense that I probably like most of the Move songs and albums,
Right.
and Wizzard, and you know.
But when Ace Kiefer was in the band, that version, it was much more of a band then, where everybody had a role. It more as it kept going. Well, obviously, we know it became Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood equally sharing the helm, obviously. But you look at Shazam, that album, I think it gets more to be more of a Roy Wood thing, I think, you know?
Yeah.
But
It's interesting
that's
how,
not bad at all, though. Shazam's brilliant, you know?
yeah, and let's not forget Bev Bevan was there the whole way through.
All the way
But
through.
I always think of it in sections of like the first incarnation, then the incarnation with Carl Wayne and Roy are kind of the heads of the band, and then the incarnation with Roy and Jeff Lynne.
Mhm.
But yeah, Bev Bevan was there the whole time, and I think he even started a band called the Move 2 or whatever. You know,
like right after.
I think he
something?
reunited the Move. No, I think he reunited the Move way later, but it wasn't with Roy Wood or Jeff Lynne.
Well, the other thing I like about those later Move records is that whenever we have a vocal from Bev, whether you consider that a novelty song or whatever,
Yeah,
you know, I love listening to Bev. I love those songs, you know.
yeah.
And they never really were able, I think Bev sang in ELO, but you can't, it's not as distinct as it used to be, you know. Roy would use Bev, you know. Well, this song, we definitely have to have Bev sing, you know. It's just great. But
He's like Johnny Cash, his voice almost.
oh my God, he's deeper than
Ben
Johnny.
Crawley.
Yeah. He's a total bass. He's great. Maybe he's a baritone. I don't know. But yeah, to sum up Wizard's Brew, I would say I'd give it a 9. I think it's every bit as good as Boulders. It's just different, you know. But I love all the tracks. The production, I mentioned that it was a bit muddy sounding for me, but the material, the material is so strong. And I haven't heard the esoteric version. I'd have to believe that it sounds better than this EMI version. I don't know. I'm assuming that this version is probably the version that came out. What did I say came out in 1999 that was soon deleted? I bet you that's what this is. And it's just in this. I'm sure they use the same. It sounds okay. It's fine. Like I said,
the
kids,
thing about the production
this is just a great, it's cheap.
I think the production was a stylistic choice.
Okay.
Because you listen to those Move albums and you listen to ELO and you listen to Boulders, they do not sound the way that Wizzard Brew sounds. I think that was on purpose. I think it was calculated.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he was into Phil Spector. Hey, you don't forget that Brian Wilson was doing the same thing Phil was doing pretty much. I mean, Brian Wilson idolized Phil Spector. You know, it all goes hand in hand. Roy idolized the Beach Boys. You know, he idolized Brian Wilson. It could be more of a Brian Wilson influence. I don't know. Who knows? Someone knows. Please put it in the comment, for God's sakes. Well, anyway, I'll give it a 9. You give it a 10. I gave Boulders a 9. Marco gave Boulders a 9. You can't go wrong with this stuff. It's eclectic, but if you like the Move, you like that first ELO album, I totally recommend checking out some Roy Wood stuff. I love it. I love it. Is there anything else you have to add, Marco, while we're winding this up?
No, and just like you said, that in particular, that Boulders album, it's very accessible.
Yeah.
Those songs are very catchy. There's some catchy stuff on there. So it's not like we're suggesting something that's way off the beaten track or super psychedelic or like really like hard to get into or a chore to listen to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's some progressive stuff that I can appreciate the playing, but it's kind of hard to really get into it. This is like really commercial stuff for a guy who's really out there and out of the box. So it's, you know, go to Spotify and listen to his Look Through the Eyes of a Fool compilation that has a little sample of all the stuff he was doing back then, and you'll probably dig that. If you dig that, then go listen to his albums.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, see, we knew this was going to be a love fest, but it's just fun talking about Roy. No one's talking about Roy. No one's talking about Wizzard. But we are over here at Grants Rock Warehouse. Next month, we're going to be looking at introducing Eddie and the Falcons, and we're going to look at Mustard. But there's nothing in between that, right? Right. Be Mustard, right? 1975. Yeah. I think. He was so prolific. I get it. Was there something right after?
No, just I know that I don't know the exact timeline, but I know he recorded Main Street in the 70s and it didn't come out until the 90s. So I don't know when that was recorded, but I think that came out after Mustard. I think it was recorded after.
Oh, let me look. Oh.
But you have to go and listen to that one.
Well, yeah, but I'll have that by then. Okay.
The timeline's a little
Main
funky,
Street, credited to Roy Wood and Wizzard, is the group's third album. It was initially planned to showcase the more jazz rock oriented, deliberately uncommercial side of the group as part of a double album, along with the material that became the 1974 album introducing Eddie and the Falcons. Okay.
Oh, okay. So
all right. Okay. These were intended to go together.
Gotcha.
This is what I propose. I know it came out in 2000, but I'd like to cover, let's look at Main Street and Eddie and the Falcons, because they go hand in hand.
Perfect.
And then we'll look at Mustard and whatever else is after that. So I'm glad we talked about it, because it's, you know, like I said, like we talked about, Main Street didn't come out until like 2000. It said it was recorded in 75. It goes hand in hand, though. Let's do that. We'll talk Main Street, and we will be talking Eddie and the Falcons. Perfect. And yeah, I'll have Main Street ready to go. But there you go, kids. Boulders and Wizzard Brew. Both great albums. We gave them great reviews. We love them. Check it out. Leave a comment. If you like ELO, you like The Move, you like Wizzard, you like Roy Wood, leave a comment. I'm going to put the link to our Move show that we did. Please watch it, make a comment. You know, we'll be hitting a lot more Roy. So, all right, Marco, I appreciate you coming on. It was great talking Roy tonight. I just love talking about these things that no one talks about. And, you know, Roy needs more love, for God's sakes. You know, if we turn on like a couple of people, I'm happy, you know?
Well, if you like Kiss or Cheap Trick, it's likely, you know, you're listening to a band that was influenced by Roy Wood and The Move.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you like any of that stuff, you know, Raspberries, all this stuff's all related. You know, it just had a lot of influence on a lot of these American bands that we know and love. Well, you know, the story, Cheap Trick, you know, in many interviews they've talked about, you know, they named the Yardbirds, they named The Move, they name Jackie Lomax is a big influence. Who's the guy that did Speak Now and Forever Hold Your Peace? I can't remember that artist. But there are so many of these UK artists and artists from Europe that were influencing our favorite bands here. You know, Slade was a big influence. And they just never caught on here. But man, they've influenced a lot of great bands here in the States. I'm sure they've influenced a lot of great bands in Canada. So it all goes hand in hand. So anyway, I want to thank Marco for... What?
Sorry, we didn't even cover the whole Slade competition that they had with the Christmas songs. Merry Xmas, everyone, and I wish it could be Christmas every day. Maybe we'll talk about that next time.
We can talk about that. We can lead off with that. All right, Marco, I want to thank you for coming on. No, you're all right. We're just talking. Doesn't matter. All right, I want to thank you for coming on. We will set a date for next month before we cut off. And then like I said, more Roy Wood on the way. Thank you, Marco. We'll see everybody. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.